How's it going, you guys? So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about reversing diabetes, and not only that, but just what does it mean to reverse a disease when we say reversed? Okay, so this video is inspired by a silly comment on Chris Masterjohn, one of Chris Masterjohn's recent videos, where Chris Masterjohn is basically replying to, so there was one of his subscribers asked a question. They asked basically if saturated fat is more readily stored as body fat, when consumed in the diet, then how come it seems easier for people to lose weight on keto compared to higher carb diets? And then Chris Masterjohn was like, replying or whatever. And in my opinion, that video was, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot more to the whole discussion. And I think part of it might have to do with stearic acid and also some of the effects of protein on caloric expenditure. But regardless, I can make another video on that for another time. Somebody posted down in the comment section of that particular video saying, on keto, it's a lot easier for me to lose weight, maintain weight loss, and basically, I reversed my type 2 diabetes, got off the medications, and I've been able to, keep my diabetes gone or whatever for a long time now, thanks to a ketogenic diet, thanks to restricting carbs. And then, of course, you have like a bunch of people that are like arguing with him in the comment section. One of those people, the silly commenter, right? He says, "Oh, you reversed your type 2 diabetes. So you mean you can eat as many carbs as you want and your diabetes won't come back?" So that is exactly the question that I want to kind of clarify. So let's see. So first and foremost, it is a fact that the majority of people who are able to sustain a well-formulated ketogenic diet or a well-formulated low-carbohydrate diet, but especially if it's ketogenic, in a matter of weeks to months, okay, number one, people's hemoglobin A1C plummets. It just drops significantly. This has been shown through multiple studies, including intervention trials, and obviously, one of them is A to Z weight loss study, where it was a 12-month study, and they measured people's blood markers at every 3 months, I think, every 3 months, every 12 weeks. So there was a 3-month marker, a 9-month marker, 3-month marker, a 6-month marker, 9-month marker, and a 12-month marker. And they actually directly compared the Atkins diet directly. It was an unrestricted Atkins diet, and they compared it to the DASH diet, they compared it to the Ornish diet, and they compared it to the Zone diet. And what they found is, double and sometimes triple improvements in blood pressure and hemoglobin A1C and weight loss and in HDL. And I believe there's a couple other markers. The only thing they didn't improve was LDL, and that's because the role of LDL in most people's minds is misunderstood. It's not necessarily a negative. But the higher saturated fat content in the diet is going to increase LDL. Anyway, the point here is that ketogenic and low-carb diets do work for diabetes. And if you follow the community of low-carb and keto, you'll see so many people, like real people, like on Facebook groups where you can verify they're real grandpas and uncles and whatnot, reversing their diabetes. A lot of times they've had diabetes for decades. Some of them have lost limbs and their vision, right? And their fasting insulin goes down, hemoglobin A1C goes down, and obviously they get off their medications and all their symptoms go away, and they reverse every disease that they thought that they didn't even know they had a lot of times, things like arthritis and Crohn's disease. Point here is that their symptoms go away, okay? Their symptoms go away, their blood markers go back to the healthy range. And as long as diabetes doesn't destroy them too much while it lasts, a lot of these people, they report that they feel like they did when they were in their 20s or 30s, which is miraculous. And so the point here is that regardless of what you think the cause is, whether you think it's an unintentional restriction in carbohydrates, unintentional restriction in calories, whether you think that's the reason why they reverse their diabetes or put their diabetes in remission or whatever you want to call it, or whether you believe it's because they aren't spiking insulin anymore. And so, like most hormones, when you have chronically elevated testosterone levels, for example, that's triggered by an exogenous source, you have a downregulation mechanism. Eventually, your body stops producing testosterone on its own, and then usually there's a counterbalance of hormones like estrogen to come and tries to bring the body back into homeostasis. And I believe this is the case for insulin resistance. I believe it's because we're chronically elevating insulin through exogenous carbohydrates that the body doesn't actually even need to survive. And through the majority of our evolution, we didn't have access to these high glycemic load carbohydrates in such abundance. And, you'd have to be digging up straws to argue otherwise. Anyway, so, this commenter says, oh, so you can add back in, you can eat as much carbohydrates as you want then, and your diabetes won't come back. That's, in his mind, what reversing type 2 diabetes means. The problem is, so look, first of all, there's two possibilities as to what causes diabetes. There's two main hypotheses. The first one is just eating an excessive amount of calories, an energy excess in general for a very long period of time. Other people believe it's fatty acids like saturated fat blocking the beta receptors in the pancreas, or blocking insulin receptors. But then you have the low carb community believing high carbohydrate diets, especially refined carbs over time, chronically spikes insulin and basically burns out insulin receptors, burns out the sensitivity to insulin, as well as probably the production of insulin altogether. And there's a variety of other hypotheses, like fatty liver disease being a prerequisite. But the point here is, when people say they reverse the disease, what they mean is the symptoms of the disease have completely gone away, and they've done so without medication, and they've gotten off their medication, okay? Because if you take like metformin, for example, you can seem to put your disease at bay. But you're on medication, first of all. You're not actually like you're not solving a root cause, A root cause implies you removed let's say carbohydrates are the threat, they're the danger. And, when you eat carbohydrates, it's the equivalent of banging your head against the wall over and over again. Eventually, your head is going to get severely bruised and injured, right? How do you cure the pain of banging your head against the wall? You stop banging your head against the wall. Now, if you start banging your head, if eventually you have the urge to start banging your head against the wall again, what's going to happen? The pain is going to come back. And so the point here is, you could see just carbohydrates are all inflammatory foods. You see all inflammatory foods, including vegetable oils, high linoleic acid content in the diet, refined foods in general. You could see those as the injury, right? The injuring behavior. If you remove the injuring behavior, whether it's just, you just remove carbs, or you remove all inflammatory foods in general, or whatever it is, not to say all carbs are inflammatory, but you remove the thing that was causing the injury in the first place, the injury is going to go away. And if you reintroduce it, what's going to happen? the injury's going to come back. And so this fucking question, so if you add carbs back in, then your symptoms won't come back. That's, that's such a dumb thing to say. And almost always when people say that, they tend to, I see this most commonly in diabetes communities who subscribe to the idea that diabetes is genetic and there's nothing you can do about it. Like people on Reddit forums, when someone says, I put my diabetes into remission or whatever on a ketogenic diet or a vegan diet or whatever it is, then they say, you mean you can eat whatever you want? You can go and eat bonbons and Twinkies and not get diabetes again? That's ridiculous. Especially considering most of the foods that create diabetes in the first place, they're foods that they're not meant to be consumed by humans. Twinkies, refined carbohydrates, vegetable oils in general, especially the seed oils. These things were never meant to be consumed by humans. They're these they're artificial creations of humankind. They've been stripped of all their natural cofactors and things that generally offset some of the negative effects of some of these, energy substrates like certain fatty acids and certain carbohydrate sources, refined carbohydrates of all kinds. And so the point here is, it's like literally the way I think it should be looked at is if you consume antifreeze. You're going to probably die, right? If you don't consume antifreeze, you're probably not going to die. If you take an addictive drug like meth, you're going to get addicted, negative things are probably going to happen. If you remove that drug for a while, the negative effects are probably, at least the progress of the negative effects are not going to continue, right? I think it's pretty obvious what I'm trying to say here. You consume damaging compounds, your body's going to get damaged. And how do you stop that damage? How do you stop that damage? You remove the damaging compound. It's really not that fucking hard. And the only way that I can see somebody justifying that as logical is if they believe that food is not medicine and they are oblivious to the fact that food creates most diseases. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they just are so brainwashed by their life, by everything they've heard, that they can't even begin to examine some of these people who, for example, have put Crohn's disease into remission by removing plant foods, for example. And I'm not saying that that's necessary or that that's going to help everybody, but a lot of people have reversed a lot of their chronic digestive disorders by removing certain plant foods. For example, I completely resolved my irritable bowel syndrome by removing whole grains, beans, nuts, and seeds, and I was able to eat whatever other plant foods I wanted. But people don't understand, when you eat food, your body creates its cells from that food, and it has to go through a variety of processes like digestion, absorption, triggering enzymes, and then it gets broken down into individual molecules, and these molecules do a variety of significant impacted things on our physiology. A lot of compounds in food can be, pretty much have effects similar to drugs, such as curcumin and its effects on, eicosanoids and inflammation, for example. Very similar effects to aspirin. People are so stuck in this idea that, oh no, only pharmaceutical drugs and surgeries are strong enough to solve diabetes and Crohn's disease. You got to remove your colon. It's sad because all these people are getting these invasive treatments that only make their life worse, never solve the problem, and create more problems from more drugs, and they never end up solving a problem. They just get worse and worse. And all you really got to do is let go of the brainwashing, which like I hate to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but it's a fact. People, their confirmation bias has been programmed by the things they've seen and heard over their lives, and now they just look at, anything outside the mainstream is quackery. And so, even people who believe food is medicine, they'll look at things like ketogenic diets and they'll automatically try to find all these reasons why they don't work or why they're harmful or something. And they don't really look for the truth and examine it. They just, whatever they've heard, kind of like they repeat whatever they've heard without actually examining the evidence behind it. And then you end up with a bunch of misinformation and half-truths and a bunch of fools that just like blindly believe it and parrot it, and they don't even know if it's valid or not. And it's so frustrating. Anyway, reversing a disease, what does that mean? Well, the symptoms are gone, you get off your medications, and you're quote unquote healthy through your nutritional means. So leave your question in the comments down below. Like really, like if you have type 2 diabetes, like are you really going to, like, what do you want them to say? Oh, I guess, they control their symptoms and were able to get off medication. Like, okay, same fucking shit. Like, what the hell? You think you can just inject yourself with a vaccine or something? A carb or whatever it is, like a diabetes vaccine, and now you're cured because you can eat Twinkies and all this garbage. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, what the fuck? Oh my god. Alright, leave your question and comments down below, and I'll talk to y'all next time.